Hi all, welcome to the Urban Designer IO Tech for Urban Design review. We are starting our tech review with Revit. This is a two-part video. Part 1 is going to talk you through setting up a file, and part 2 is about how to use it. I'm also going to share the files we used here. Please comment below how you use Revit for urban design differently, or what other tools you're using to design cities. Thank you. We're gonna start a new file. We're gonna choose a metric template, architectural metric template. These are like the default templates that Revit comes with. And we're creating a new project. First of all, we're going to change the units of the new file. So we're going to go to Manage and going to go to Project Units because we're not designing toilet fixtures, but we're going to design cities. So our length units needs to be in meters, and we're going to have 2 decimal places at the end of everything. Yeah, and everything else got adjusted accordingly, I believe. Okay, all right. Okie dokes. So there are 2 main elements that we're going to use Revit for, and that we're going to use for master planning of Revit. And I'm going to switch back and forth to my demo file. So the main elements are masses to show buildings and rooms to show areas. I mean, by the name of those elements, you can see that Revit was not designed with urban designers in mind. But anyway, let's get started and let's get those elements configured in such a way that we can use them. So in order to do that, let me demo that first. So if I go to massing inside and I want to make an in-place mass, yeah. Apologies that my Revit is a little bit in German. You can give the mass a name, yeah, and off you go. The way you draw it, you draw a basic footprint of the mass, and then you choose that footprint and make an extrusion out of it, a solid form. There we go, and that should have created for you a 3D object. But at the moment, there are certain things that aren't ideal with this mass for us to use it to model many individual buildings. And that is that, for instance, I can't edit this building's height from within its properties. I need to go into it and go edit mass, edit in place every time, which is a pain in the butt. So we don't want that. Therefore, we're going to create a bunch of properties, and you just stay with me there. And those properties are going to help us along the way. All right? Okay. So I'm going to set the scale of this view to 1 to 2000. I'm going to hide this type of element from my view because I virtually never once have used it. By the way, the whole user interface, the whole UI of Revit is obviously totally not fit for purpose for urban design. I would delete most elements from here because they're mostly confusing. So let's start. So one of the best features, I would say, of Revit is that you're able to schedule your design. So whatever you're drawing. So to do that, Revit uses the parameters of an object, but you want to create these parameters in the first place, and therefore you go to the Manage tab and we're going to create a bunch of shared parameters right now. Okay. So first of all, we're going to create a new shared parameter file. And you see I've tested around with that already, so we're going to create a new one. It's going to be demo shared add parameters. There we go. Save it somewhere where it's handy. There you go. I'm going to create a parameter group. I'm going to call them new parameters. I don't think it matters. Okay. And now we're going to create a bunch of new parameters. So one parameter is going to be called building height. Building height is going to be a length, type of parameter length, discipline, yeah, you know, common is good enough. And it's going to help us to define the mass's height without going into every individual mass. Okay, we're going to create a new parameter. We're going to call it building efficiency. Building efficiency is a parameter that we're going to associate with each mass, and it's going to be a number. There we go. We're going to associate that with each mass. It's going to be a factor by which we multiply the gross floor area of a building to say this is what the net floor area of the building is. So building efficiency translates between gross and net floor area. Okay? All right. Building efficiency. New parameter. We're going to call it building ID. You can imagine in a master plan, many buildings. Each of them need to have some kind of an identifier number if you want to talk to other people about it, like to the client. So building ID is a good one to create, and we're going to give this this is going to be a text, because it can be either a number or a letter. Okay, and we're going to create yet another new parameter. It's going to be parcel ID. Obviously, the parcel that one or several buildings stand on need to be numbered as well. And that's going to be a text. Okay. The next one we're going to create is building use. What are we using a building for, right? And building use, believe it or not, is going to be a material. The reason for that being is that in order to change the colors of all these in-place masses, we can only do that through assigning different materials to them. But you want to see on the master plan many colorful buildings representing different types of functions, and so we need to do it via this little loop trick. Okay? Okay. Building function or building use. Okay, and another parameter I'm going to call land use. Land use is going to be useful for the rooms that we're creating, being the plots on which the buildings sit, and land use is going to be a text. Okay? I think that's it for now. You can always add more new parameters later on, but in the meantime, that should be good. Hit OK. All right. So let's assign some of these parameters to our elements. So we have created this very generic mass from scratch over here, and we're going to go ahead and assign some of these parameters to the mass. First of all, we're going to do that under Manage, Project Parameters. So now we're going to assign all these new parameters that we've just created to a project. Hooray! So we're going to hit Add. We're going to specify the shared parameters. So let's start with building efficiency. Okay, we're going to go alphabetical. Building efficiency. We want to associate that with our masses. So you need to select mass right here. And always make sure instance is selected, not type, so that every individual instance of mass has that parameter associated with it. All right, hit Okay. Add another one. We're gonna select building height. So building height, remember, is gonna be a length that we can assign to a mass being on its outside. So again, we're gonna associate this with mass, instance, correct. Next one, add a shared parameter, building ID, and God knows what would be useful if you could do several at once, but you can't. Building ID, we're going to associate building ID, obviously, with masses. You could have a think whether you want to associate building ID with rooms. Why not? Let's go ahead and do that with rooms as well. Instance. Values can vary. Okay? Okay. Next one is going to be building use. Okay, building use is going to be assigned to masses to display their use to a little color. Values can vary to be fine. Okay, hit OK. All right, so now if you touch that mass, it should have these parameters already associated with it. There we go. There is building use, and we have building ID, and we have building height, and it doesn't say anything yet on building height. Okay. Now, if we go into that mass, and we got to make sure the profile is locked. What that is it's just a plain, simple, old, boring extrusion. Yeah, it's no fancy shape. So then the negative offset has to be 0. The positive offset is like how far do you offset from the level you're on. It's not going to be an actual number. It's going to be a parameter. So there we go. Now we've associated building height with the height of the mass. We finished the mass, and it looks a bit awkward because probably it has a wrong building height associated. There you go. And you can also see that in the properties, building height has been carried over from the z-axis before. So now you can go ahead and change the building height. You can probably see that in 3D a lot better. There you go. You can touch the mass, and you can change the building height. It's very practical if you want to edit many buildings in one go. Let's make it a high-rise to 56 meters. Next thing, we want to give those buildings some colors. Same thing, we're going to edit that thing. We're going to go to the material of the mass. Oops, I've clicked on the wrong thing. You don't want to edit the material. You want to go to the parameters. You want to associate a shared parameter, which is building use, with a certain instance. Okay, there we go. We finish this. And now, by going to building use, I can edit. Let's create a funky new material. So now, if essentially you're creating the building uses as materials. Yeah, so you duplicate some existing use, and you call that, for instance, residential, which is the one you're going to be using most often, likely. And you're gonna give it a nice color. Maybe, how about a nice little orange? I like my resi to be orange. Okay. Okay, and you want to go through this whole shebang and give that same color to every possible display of that material. Come on. You can see that there are quite a lot of steps involved into making this work for you, but trust me, it's only going to get easier. So pattern, we want to have a solid fill pattern on every possible display of that material, because you also want to see that orange color in section. You can always edit that later. I mean, essentially, for an urban design template, I'd go ahead and delete all the other materials in here, because now in order to create other land uses, you want to duplicate that material. Okay, there you go. So we want to maybe see a shadow. This is our resi building, and now in here we can also see its shadow nice and clear. All right, next thing we want to modify for our template is a room. So the next element that we're going to focus on is rooms. Rooms are great to draw different types of areas in the master plan, but as the name suggests, rooms weren't originally designed to be that type of element within Revit. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to draw a room with a room separation line. So what you need to know about rooms is rooms are two-dimensional elements within Revit, but they are not view specific. So they're model elements. You can schedule them, and the room itself can have a variety, endless variety of properties associated with it. So this is a room. I'm going to place a room separation boundary, and I'm going to place the room in here. There we go. So room comes with a room tag. I'm going to hide room tags at the minute. And you can see that this is the room itself. Now I want to associate some of the parameters that we had before with the rooms, such as the land use of the room. Let's go to manage parameters. Manage. Have we not created land use? We have, I thought. Yes, there it is. Land use. It's a land use we want to associate with rooms. Okay. And we want to add another property, which we've made earlier, such as parcel ID. Okay. To associate that with rooms. Okay. The handy thing about rooms is that you can display them with the help of a color fill legend. And let's hit OK for now. And I'll show you how to edit that in a second. So now we want to change the land use of that room, and we said we would, land use is just a text property, so let's say this is the residential area. There we go. Change that to residential. Now if we edit that color scheme, and we want to color the rooms based on the land use. We create a new color scheme. You can duplicate an existing one. It's always safe within Revit. We call it land use. Yeah. And just to be safe, we rename the legend as well. And use legend. And here we pick the property by which the color is assigned. So we pick land use. Color is not preserved, that's fine. That's okay. And we hit OK. Now we've drawn this. Let's adjust the color fill legend, edit its type. We just need to make it significantly smaller. Font size, maybe 3 millimeters. There we go. Now that looks a bit better. Doesn't adjust. So if this is your master plan and this is your land use legend, off you go. And the great thing about rooms is, so if I create a similar room now, so CS for creating similar type element, and you just got to make sure they're never overlapping room separation. So rooms are quite flimsy, let's say, elements. They don't like overlapping lines, which you'd think right now, well, what's the matter? You're just drawing a closed loop, it should all be fine. But wait till you start tracing things off CAD files. You'll necessarily start having overlapping lines, which, you know, can be quite a bugbear. So there we go. I've drawn, let's call them plots. They don't look, it doesn't look like a master plan yet, right? So you can now copy that room across. If you copy a room, it carries all the properties as well. But the handy thing about rooms is that if I now need to assign a different land use to this plot, let's say this is mixed use, you can just type it. And if it hadn't existed before, it will be added to the legend. And if this one is maybe school, then it just changes automatically. And you can see that actually Revit has, you know, a cute little color scheme going on there. I like to then go in and change the colors. I can show you how that's done in a second. This we will call maybe retail. Okay. The unfortunate thing is that the masses that obviously also have land use or building use associated with them can't inherit the land use from a room, which would be quite handy because you start placing masses in one area and you drag them to another area. Would be nice if the land use adjusted, but it doesn't work like so. So there we go. We have assigned properties to a mass. We have assigned properties to our land use plot. This was part 1. In the next video, you'll see how to import urban context and terrain to your project, how to create schedules, and how to start master planning. You can download this file under the link below. Let me know your comments about using Revit for urban design and your input for the next videos. Thank you.